Good morning, all of you. Um, if there are any mistakes, rather, there will certainly be mistakes. Number one. Number two is, I am only the messenger and I am not being defensive about it. I am not the message itself. So, yesterday, as one of the speakers said, please don't shoot me. Well, you need not pardon me, but definitely accept my apologies. So, the main objective of this session here, I will also not repeat what Sri Shailat said, but I must do my duty to him and to the conference by requesting you all to participate in this session as much as possible. You will all be glad to know that, please put your hands up, the students of the MSc course, Climate Change Impacts Management, have been running around a lot, collecting a lot of information. As you can see, they are sitting in the group here. And they will note down the points. They will note down the points, themselves, and then come back to us for integrating them in the final recommendation. There were two ways, and I'll just take half a minute more on this. There were two ways in which all this information was compiled. The first and the foremost was to actually sit at the sessions and keep our eyes and ears open, not for all scientific findings, but keep our eyes and ears open only for the recommendations. Only for the recommendations. Therefore, these are ideas which have come out of the plenary discussion or out of the presentations in the 5 different sessions. The second one was, thanks to some excellent people here, and I must mention this for Sri Shailat's special reference, there have been some people even this morning with whom when we spoke, they responded excellently well. And thanks to Shiv Kumar and others who have come and our other senior colleagues here who gave their inputs even at the last moment. Hegde was one of them, and he has in fact marked and already given those to us. Now, let's go down to the summary of recommendations, and please mark again, this is just the draft, which means you all of us will be responsible for compiling the information that will come ahead after this. Now, the conference summary. These are the 5 main heads under which information will be presented. What was the basic concept? And since our esteemed fellow citizen, I must say daringly, and a very senior administrator has come from the Planning Commission, he would like to know that there has been a logical framework, a very clear logical framework which has driven the activity and the outputs. We would like all seniors on the dais, particularly and the others, to take note of this fundamental fact that this was not an arbitrary exercise, this was in response to a felt need, and that basic concept will be highlighted in the next coming few slides. The total number of papers presented are more than 100. The central theme has been agriculture as a tool for mitigation. Do we have information on global warming impacts? How can knowledge be applied and leadership be fostered? Can there also be discussions on agricultural inputs and technologies? These are the 5 themes. The presentation here quite obviously cannot be too very long. We have taken out the main aspects which are considered or highlighted by the deliberations at the conference, and some very important recommendations have been presented. I'll take just a minute, and the total presentation will not be for more than 15-20 minutes, and I can assure you on that. Though the number of slides are large, please keep your eyes and ears open for the important points. The basic concept we said is, we will not get into the debate of whether it is scientifically, whether it is naturally happening or on account of human-induced factors, and that is insofar as the climate change and the global warming phenomenon is concerned, but recognize the most important fact that impacts are important to be tackled. And number 2 is, agriculture has not been given adequate importance, in the deliberations either in India or elsewhere insofar as its carbon sequestration potential is concerned. There is enormous scope for leadership and action, leadership and education, and this education leading to action to take place. Now, what are the 3 most important roles? The photosynthetic role, the predominant determinant that agriculture is for livelihoods, and that there is enormous scope, significant scope for locally significant mitigation and adaptation action through leadership. Livelihood issues are further compounded by global warming impacts, and therefore it is important to appropriately position agriculture. Can we at the end of the conference say that we are at the starting point where agriculture will be mainstreamed into discussions on climate change mitigation and adaptation? Beyond rhetoric, we also would like to strengthen action at the local level through leadership, and that is through well-informed action. Can we provide information? Can we create greater awareness? Can we provide technical capacity building? Which is what we want to address through this conference. If that is the founding principle, there were some important questions, and I'm sure you will all like these questions, which are the basis of the logical framework. If anyone has got objections or would like to add to some of these questions, please feel free. The first and the foremost question which this conference wanted to ask is, do we have long-term empirical evidence which is documented insofar as climate change is concerned? Do we have local innovations which have been able to sustain delivery, and have they been recognized? Have they been adequately highlighted? If these two things are happening or not happening, what are the information and hands-on orientation dissemination mechanisms? Do we know that there are so many programs in the country, and if they are not adequate, what more needs to be done about it? Finally, and very importantly, are the farmers, are the communities adequately capacity built to talk about this? Can they articulate their successes? Can they articulate what are the barriers? Do they have capabilities to also monitor and report on some of these problems, without which decision making will become difficult? These were the 4 important questions we wanted to answer in this conference. And please mark the last 2 bullets there. There is no debate on environment and sustainable development. The mantra here is sustaining development. How do we work towards sustaining development? And we believe that unless the quality of life of our stakeholders is improved, we will not be able to sustain development. These are some of the important questions. And what are the guiding principles, therefore? We will take note of initiatives that have already been carried out. We are the last of the people who will say, look, nobody has done this, nothing has happened, and so on. We know there has been excellent work which has already taken place, but very importantly, we want to focus on the barriers and how to overcome these barriers. And finally, can we say at the end of the conference that there is an unfinished agenda? There is an unfinished agenda, because we don't want to come back within a month or two to talk about an unfinished agenda. Can we articulate that unfinished agenda and propose a menu of activities for the way forward? If that therefore is the logical framework, you will be glad to know that the conference has taken note. To summarize very quickly, the conference has very clearly said through the presentations that we should not abuse or over-exploit our resources. And please mark, watersheds and rangelands have also been included in it. Is it possible to enrich soil carbon by composting, residue management? Please mark that speakers here have spoken about an integrated aspect. It is not agriculture alone. Livestock is also covered. Livestock management, agriculture, horticulture, silviculture, and pasture development with integrated. Only the pest management is mentioned, but there is nutrient management and others. Here is a very clear action plan which has been suggested, an action route. Let us focus on less productive and arid lands. Instead of flogging our already productive soils, can we look at these also? How best can we reduce fertilizer use and mechanization? Can we restore degraded watersheds and rangelands? It is not as if these are new, but then the group which met here has felt that these are still parts of the unfinished agenda. Use small dams, drip irrigation and mulches. Use efficient power generation and consumption systems. This was a very important point made yesterday in the panel on consumption. Strengthen Gramodyogs. Build capacities of women and for women empowerment, user groups. Involve eco-volunteers. Develop interdisciplinary curricula for education. And the last one there was extremely important, and that is about quality assurance and benchmarking for education on climate change and global warming. Hariharan, for instance, raised this important point, whether our focus on sustainable development is adequate in terms of a precautionary action to deal with global climate change. Agriculture and its sustained development is not a standalone aspect. And why is it not a standalone aspect? We have to also consider that raising livelihood parameters, health and overall well-being is important so that people can participate and deliver better. For this, we need to harness locally relevant information and capabilities. Please mark once again, and I must do my duty to the people who have presented all these ideas, these are not mere statements. These are guiding principles for action for the future. And again, at the cost of repetition, this means a lot of work has happened, but so much more has to be done. And that is the purpose of restating these ever more emphatically. adopt Gandhian principles of Swadeshi, Ahimsa, self-sufficiency, Sarvodaya and integrate them with green movement.